Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We're digging into some source material today, specifically excerpts from a YouTube video transcript. It captures moments from a press conference with Donald Trump.
hmm
And our goal, as always, is to unpack what's actually being said and done in this material, pull out the key bits of information, and, understand the potential significance as it's presented.
Right, just focusing on what the transcript itself contains.
Exactly. So let's dive right in.
Go.
First up, let's talk about what this material covers regarding universities. Harvard comes up quite a bit.
It does. The transcript has Trump quoted saying Harvard needs remedial math.
Yeah, and questioning how students get in if they, quote, can't add 2 and 2.
And there's this link made right in the text between these students and being troublemakers, also described as anti-Semitic or they're something.
That phrase, or there's something, is specifically in the transcript.
Yeah. It's interesting how the material connects these perceived academic issues directly to, well, characterizations about behavior and political leanings. It frames it less about just grades and more about other things.
And the idea of Harvard actually teaching remedial math, the source says that's not the deal. Then there's a follow-up question mentioned about potentially restricting foreign students, but not just at Harvard, at other universities too.
And the response captured is just looking at a lot of things.
Which is pretty vague, but suggests, maybe a wider scope than just one university.
It certainly hints that way in the context of this material, yeah, that the focus might broaden out.
The transcript also highlights Harvard's endowment. $52 billion is the figure mentioned.
Right, and connects that to a claim that this country is paying billions and billions of dollars to Harvard.
Leading to this idea that Harvard will, quote, have to change its ways.
So putting those pieces together from the transcript, it looks like a potential argument is being constructed, linking funding, endowment size, student characteristics, and the need for the university to change its practices based on these criticisms.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's move into the economic side, the tariffs and trade discussion in the transcript.
Okay.
There's this statement about a 50% tariff on Europe. Pretty stark.
Very stark. But then immediately, the material includes the clarification, there is no tariff if those European companies build plants in the U.S.
Right, and it mentions huge investment figures, like over $12 trillion practically committed, though where that number comes from isn't detailed in the excerpt we have.
No, it's just stated. And there's that line, I'm not looking for a deal. I mean, we've set the deal. It's at 50%.
So based on this text, the tariff isn't primarily about collecting import duties. It sounds more like leverage.
That seems to be the implication here, yes. That the 50% is the stick, and the carrot is investing directly in the U.S., building factories here. The goal presented is driving that domestic investment.
Then the transcript turns attention to U.S. companies, Apple specifically, and it lays out a potential 25% tariff on Apple if they don't make iPhones domestically.
Which is a significant point in the material. The idea that this tariff pressure isn't just for foreign companies, but could apply to American ones too, based purely on where they manufacture.
And the stated rationale is that this is helping, creating American jobs.
Right. The transcript also notes this wouldn't just be for Apple, but for Samsung and anybody that makes that product.
And it mentions a start date, the end of June.
So it's presented as a sector-wide policy, potentially, aimed at job creation, with a timeline.
Then there's this whole bit about who pays for the tariffs. The material quotes the speaker suggesting companies should eat the tariffs?
Yeah, saying sometimes the country will eat it, sometimes Walmart will eat it. The idea being that companies should just make a little bit less money.
Because, quote, I don't want the consumer to pay.
And it includes a claim that tariffs under the previous administration didn't lead to inflation or a big cost differential.
Which, counters a lot of standard economic thinking on tariffs.
It does. This part of the material presents a specific viewpoint, that the burden can be shifted away from consumers and onto businesses or exporting nations, citing past experience as proof within this context.
Okay, let's move on to international relations as described in the transcript, particularly with Europe.
Right. The material quotes some pretty direct criticisms of the EU.
Yeah, claims like they haven't treated us properly, they've banded together to take advantage of us.
And that they sue our companies all the time, using it as a weapon and even a fundraising mechanism.
There's a specific example mentioned, too, having won a $17 billion lawsuit for Apple. Although the context of one isn't fully clear, it's presented as a grievance.
It paints a picture, in this source, of the EU as quite adversarial, using legal tactics for economic gain against the U.S. Very confrontational framing.
The material digs deeper, claiming the EU uses non-monetary tariffs and lots of other trading barriers.
And specific examples like not taking U.S. cars or agriculture, while the U.S. takes European cars by the millions.
Leading to this outcome described as, they get jobs and money, the U.S. gets closed plants.
And then there's that line about Europe wanting to make a deal very badly, but they don't do it right.
So all these complaints, the alleged unfair practices, the barriers, the lawsuits, seem to be positioned in the transcript as the justification for that tough stance we talked about earlier, like the 50% tariff idea.
Exactly. It builds the case within this narrative for why such measures are deemed necessary.
And this description of the EU relationship really contrasts with how other deals are mentioned in the material.
It does. There's talk of a great deal with the United Kingdom, a deal with China.
And having numerous other deals that are ready to be signed.
So you see this dichotomy presented, past deals framed as successes or near successes versus the current EU relationship described as problematic and requiring a forceful approach because, according to this account, they aren't negotiating correctly.
Now, the transcript also includes a few sort of color moments from the press conference itself, little details.
Yeah, like the phone incident.
Right. Trump's iPhone apparently kept on ringing over and over again.
And his reaction, as captured in the text, was, oh, it's a phone, and then saying, it's only a congressman.
Just a small, unscripted moment included in the description.
There's a little flavor of the actual event, I suppose.
There's also a mention of an executive order signing on nuclear energy.
And someone present, when Trump asks if they were doing something about regulation, replies, yes, sir, you are, sir.
Just a brief interaction recorded in the text showing that back and forth during the signing confirms the focus on regulation for that EO.
Right.
Okay, let's circle back quickly to manufacturing and Apple. The transcript includes a specific question put to Trump.
About the cost, right?
Exactly. How can you be confident Apple can build plants here without the price of an iPhone skyrocketing? The questioner even throws out a number like $20,000 an iPhone.
Which directly challenges the core idea, the economic feasibility of bringing that kind of high-tech manufacturing back without massive price hikes.
And the response detailed in the transcript, oh, they know they can.
Pretty confident assertion.
Yeah, and the reasoning given is that plants are so computerized now, these plants are amazing.
Okay, so citing automation and advanced manufacturing technology.
Plus mentioning big investment numbers again, Apple coming in with $500 billion, and chip companies spending huge amounts too, $200 billion, $250 billion. Again, the source of these figures isn't detailed in the excerpt.
No, but they're used to bolster the argument. And it reiterates the desire for iPhones sold in the U.S. to be made in the U.S.
So that response really ties it back to the tariff discussion, doesn't it? The claim is, essentially, tech advancements and committed investments make domestic production feasible, countering the cost concerns and justifying the push, maybe through tariffs, to make it happen.
That seems to be the connection made within the narrative presented in this material, yes.
So, all right, let's try to pull this together, based strictly on the transcript excerpts we've discussed today. We've seen comments targeting universities, particularly Harvard, linking academics, funding, and student character.
And this detailed stance on trade, using tariffs potentially as leverage, targeting both foreign and domestic companies based on manufacturing location, with specific views on who should bear the costs.
We've also covered the description of international relations, especially the highly critical view of the EU's trade practices, contrasted with mentions of other deals.
And those couple of small, specific moments from the press conference environment itself.
So quite a range of topics covered in this source material.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider drawing only from these specific points we've outlined from the transcript. When you look at how these different areas, education, tariffs, international relations, corporate investment, are discussed alongside each other in this material, what underlying connections or perhaps consistent themes do you see emerging in the way these issues are being framed?
Something to chew on. That brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.